I think the narrative is slightly the reverse. So originally the EU counter tariffs were put in place to implicitly go for Republican congressional areas and where production was made there. So that Harley is a prime example. Now, what's interesting today is I was looking at the European press, in particular the German press. The narrative there is now, this is a great victory for the EU. It's not really. I actually think, despite the tweets that we've seen from the president, I think this proves his argument to him, his mercantilist argument to him, that tariffs work. Because actually, if you think about the German automakers, what's the sensible route for them to take right now? Full production capacity here.
Right. If we put tariffs on imports, just move production here. Right.
I think this.
And the president understands that very, very well.
Of course he does. He absolutely understands it. And I think that's what you will see. You have to see that. And let's take the example of the German automakers. So they're in real trouble, actually. You've got the Dieselgate situation. Then you have 494,000 exports to the US of German cars. Then you add Brexit, which is another 769,000. There's only 258,000 sold to China. So look at that huge number of German cars that could be facing tariffs, particularly if there's no Brexit deal. So they've got to start shifting production. And actually that, as an aside, you would expect Germany, which is the ultimate mercantilist nation, side by side with China, and it has been for a long time, and in my opinion has been benefiting from the EU in its mercantilist policy. The German manufacturers understand this. So at some point you're going to start to see what the Japanese have already announced, some of the South Korean companies have already announced, and even a couple of Chinese companies have announced production being
So this is all working.
Here. It's going to be up and down. It's going to be rough. But I think that there's an intent.
Why is it going to be rough if
it's working in the way the president wants it to, is what he's saying, right?
I think it's working the way the president wants it to. I think the Europeans, rather like the president's tweets misdirecting, I think the Europeans are misdirecting by saying this is a victory, because that wasn't their intent.
But do you get frustrated when the president gets angry that Harley-Davidson's going to build in the EU? When to your point, it proves his point, right? If they're going to sell to EU citizens and they want to avoid high tariffs, they produce there, right? He gets angry when they do what is the obvious converse to what's happening here.
Unfortunately, with the case of China, the government can speak on behalf of industry. In the case of the European Union, and bear in mind, I think German cars were one of the prime targets.
Right.
The EU, Brussels can't talk on behalf of industry, and Germany can't talk. Only industry can talk on behalf. So the news flow from there will be much more piecemeal than what we're seeing at a governmental level.
So if we play out your world as you see it, what does that mean for the macro environment, for world GDP, et cetera?
I'm actually optimistic.
Because?
I think in terms of this trade situation, despite all the noise that you're seeing, every time you see a market swoon, there's a comment coming out from the administration here. Well, we didn't mean restrictions on investment. That comes from the hawk, Navarro. I actually think we end up with a more open China in terms of trade. And I think, given all the problems going on in the EU right now, you will see something come through at the company level, not necessarily at the Brussels level. It just makes too much sense.
Hey there, thanks for checking out CNBC on YouTube. Be sure to subscribe to stay up to date on all of the day's biggest stories. You can also click on any of the videos around me to watch the latest from CNBC. Thanks for watching.